She wanted to document her first night babysitting. Just a harmless little vlog, she said. But the camera caught something no one expected, and she hasn't been seen since. Chapter 1. The first night. Her name was Olivia Hart, 19 years old, a quiet, responsible college sophomore, trying to balance school and side jobs to make ends meet. Most weekends, it wasn't exciting work, but it paid more than waiting tables and let her study when the kids went to sleep. On Friday, November 12, 2021, she accepted a last-minute booking through a local nanny app. The requests came from a couple living in the suburbs of Bloomington, Indiana. The listing looked normal. 2 children under 5, cameras already installed, and a note that said, "We'll be back before midnight." Big house. She smiles, waves at the camera, and rings the doorbell. Easy money. The father briefly showed her how the security system worked. The mother walked her through the bedtime routine for their toddler. A smart home system controlled most of it. Lights, thermostats, doors, monitors were mounted in the kitchen and living room, showing live feeds from the nursery and backyard. Then, they were gone. Hopefully no creepy dolls lot. Olivia texted her roommate before heading out. Got a last-minute gig. Just her chatting to the camera, showing the nursery, the hallway, and where the emergency contacts were posted. She even points out the carbon monoxide detector and jokes. She arrived at the house at 6:42 p.m. Ring cam footage shows her stepping onto the porch in a grey hoodie, holding a small backpack and a bottle of iced tea. The parents greeted her warmly. They were in a rush, dressed for an event. Just before the door closed, Olivia turned back to the camera and said, jokingly, "Wish me luck." The house was clean, quiet, and upscale. Olivia put her bag on the counter, checked on the toddler, and took a short video with her phone. The image freezes. Olivia's face distorts slightly. She liked making little vlogs, not for YouTube, just for fun. It helped her stay awake and feel less alone. The footage begins with her setting up the phone on the kitchen island, balancing it against a cup. The house is super nice. The kitchen lights are dimmer, like they were turned down slightly. There's a faint background hum, mechanical, maybe, something not there before. She tilts her head like she hears something, but doesn't speak. Olivia doesn't comment on it. She seems unaware. Kids asleep. I've got snacks. Nothing spooky yet. She leans into the frame and grins. No scary basement. The parents even left snacks. I might just move in. Okay. Day 1 of babysitting for strangers. She laughs at herself, then starts a casual walkthrough of the house. Nothing dramatic. I watch too many true crime shows not to check this thing. The first 20 minutes of the video are normal, uneventful. Even she reheats pasta, scrolls through her phone, and sits down on the couch. The baby monitor shows the toddler rolling around in their sleep. At one point, she looks off screen, confused, and says, "Did that door just creak?" She places it back in the nursery, checks on the toddler, and whispers. She walks over, checks, shrugs, and returns. Then, something strange happens. At timestamp, 9:41 p.m., the video glitches. It's brief, less than a second, but the audio pops. When the video continues, the lighting in the room has changed. Just kidding. She continues talking, but now her voice is quieter. Then, at 9:46 p.m., she pauses mid-sentence and turns toward the hallway. The audio spikes. A sharp pop, then silence. When it comes back, she's smiling again, almost like nothing happened. Later, investigators would examine this moment carefully. They noticed something odd. In the background of the hallway camera, a small shadow passes by the door. It's subtle. Blink, and you'll miss it. But Olivia never reacts to it. No glance, no change in posture, no acknowledgement at all. Just silence. Then back to casual talk. She picks up her phone and films a selfie-style clip. Kids still out. She turns the camera to show the hallway again, laughs softly, then ends the clip. Everything after that is still being studied. But one detail stood out to everyone who saw the footage. Olivia never looked scared, even as strange sounds crept in, even when shadows appeared in doorways, even when the baby monitor briefly cut to black for 2 seconds and came back with a new angle. She never seemed to notice. Some would say that's because she didn't see anything. Others believe she saw everything. but didn't want the camera to catch her reaction. At 10:08 p.m., Olivia walks into frame holding a small toy she picked up off the floor. "I think someone else lives in this house." She smiles nervously. It's hard to tell if she's joking. Then she looks directly into the lens and says, "If I disappear, this is the last thing I filmed." She ends the clip. But that wasn't the last thing she filmed, and it wasn't a joke. Chapter 2. Something's wrong with the footage. When Olivia didn't respond to calls the next morning, her roommate grew worried. She had expected Olivia to be home before midnight, just like always, but her bed was still made. Her backpack was missing, and there were no messages. At 9:12 a.m., the parents of the child she had been babysitting called the police. They said Olivia had vanished. No note, no signs of struggle, no explanation. Her phone was found still charging on the kitchen counter. The baby was unharmed, and the house was exactly as they left it. Clean, quiet, and untouched. Except for one thing, the camera. Still recording. Detectives began reviewing the footage that afternoon. They expected to find a break-in, or at least some clue of where Olivia had gone. What they found instead was something much harder to explain. The first hour of footage seemed perfectly normal. There was no panic in her voice, no fear in her face. Olivia chatting, walking through the house, checking on the baby. She looked calm, relaxed. But when investigators looked closer, they noticed small things that didn't make sense. At 9:33 p.m., there was a faint sound in the background, a soft knock, like wood tapping against wood. Olivia didn't react. At 9:36, the baby monitor blinked, just for a second, and showed a strange visual. The crib was empty, even though the toddler was clearly sleeping moments before. Then it blinked again, and the child was there. Olivia never mentioned it. She kept talking to the camera. "Okay, so I found snacks. They'd even have kettle chips. These people are my heroes." She laughs, but in the background, the hallway lights flicker twice. When investigators paused the video at that exact moment, frame by frame, they noticed something chilling. For 2 frames, not even half a second, a figure appears in the far end of the hallway, still, tall, head tilted slightly toward the camera. Olivia is facing the opposite direction. She doesn't see it, and then, just like that, it's gone. The tech team isolated the moment, enhanced the footage. It wasn't a trick of the light. It wasn't a glitch. Olivia is speaking, but her voice becomes warped, deeper, slower, then cuts off completely. There was someone, or something, standing there. Then her voice returns, mid-sentence, as if nothing happened. No clear facial features, just a dark outline, long arms, and something white near the face, like a mask or reflection. At 9:48 p.m., another anomaly. The audio track spikes. Static bleeds in from nowhere. The video plays in silence for exactly 11 seconds. Investigators later confirmed the footage had not been tampered with. "So, this is weird. I swear, I heard footsteps upstairs, but I'm alone. Kids asleep. Doors are locked." Right. What you hear is exactly what was recorded. At 10:02 p.m., she films another short clip on her phone. In it, she seems more subdued, less playful. Okay, she smiles, but it's nervous now. "I'm probably just psyching myself out." She walks down the hallway, slowly. The camera turns toward the nursery. The door is cracked open, just a bit. A faint creak is heard. She pushes the door open fully. The baby is sleeping peacefully. She adjusts the blanket and whispers, more shadowed, like something is distorting the light. "You didn't make that noise, did you?" Then the camera turns back to the hallway. There's nothing there, but the walls seem darker, bright lines, color, distortion, and what looks like a second voice layered under Olivia's. The footage continues. Olivia goes back to the kitchen, but then another glitch. This time, more serious. The video tears digitally for several seconds. When investigators enhanced the audio, they isolated the background voice. It was low, breathy, and it whispered one word. Olivia. After that, her behavior changed. She stops flogging. No more jokes. No more casual updates. She paces around the house, checking windows, locking doors again. At 10:27 p.m., she sits on the couch and stares at the baby monitor. Not moving, not blinking, just watching. Her breathing becomes shallow. She picks up her phone, but doesn't dial. Instead, she types a message, then deletes it, then types again. The final message found on her phone was never sent. It read, "I think there's someone here, but I don't know how they got in." At 10:46 p.m., the hallway camera captures movement again. Not Olivia, not the parents, someone else. A shadow crosses the frame. Fast, low, silent. Investigators freeze the frame, enhance it, and see what appears to be a bare foot stepping into the hallway, then vanishing into a side room. But when officers searched the house the next day, there were no footprints, no dirt, no sign of entry or exit. The back door was locked from the inside. The side windows were sealed. The crawl space had not been opened in years. So where did that figure come from? And more importantly, where did Olivia go? The footage ends at 11:17 p.m. No final scream, no crash, no cut to black, just a slow fade. The last thing captured is Olivia standing in the hallway, back to the camera, staring at the nursery. The baby is still asleep. The hallway is still. Then Olivia speaks almost too softly to hear. "Why is the door open?" She takes one step forward, and the video ends. Chapter 3. The last time she was seen at exactly 11:45 p.m., the homeowners returned. They had been at a formal event, a charity gala across town. Security cameras on the driveway show their car pulling into the garage. Everything seems normal, calm/routine. They walked in through the front door. The house was quiet. The air smelled faintly of vanilla and something else, something they couldn't quite place, like warm metal. The lights were still on. The baby monitor glowed softly on the kitchen counter. But Olivia was gone. Her shoes were still by the door. Her jacket was hanging neatly on a hook. Her phone was still charging. The living room was tidy, untouched. The only sound in the house came from the soft white noise on the baby monitor. At first, they assumed she was in the bathroom. Then still no sign of her. Then, maybe outside making a call. But 5 minutes passed. The wife knocked on the nursery door and opened it slowly. The baby was asleep, undisturbed. Everything inside the room was exactly as it should be, except Olivia wasn't there. They searched the house from top to bottom, every room, every hallway. They even opened the attic access, untouched. The windows were locked from the inside. No forced entry, no broken glass, and no trace of Olivia Hart. They called her name. No answer. They called her phone. It rang from the kitchen counter. She'd never taken it with her. That was when the mother noticed something odd. The baby monitor was showing a live feed of the hallway, but the hallway light was off. She remembered leaving it on. When she walked down the hallway to check, the light flickered on by itself. That's when she called the police. The first officer arrived just after midnight. The homeowners explained everything, that Olivia had been babysitting, that she was kind, respectful, that she wouldn't just leave. The officer walked the property, checked every lock, every exit. There were no signs of a break-in, nothing stolen, no damage. It was like she had simply walked out into thin air. But her car was still parked in the driveway. By 1:15 a.m., detectives were on site. They began a full sweep of the house, took photographs, gathered evidence, downloaded the security footage from the front door, backyard, and hallway cameras. They also collected Olivia's phone. A forensic team dusted for prints. Only 3 sets were found throughout the house. The homeowners, their child, and Olivia's. No unknown prints, no DNA, no blood, no sign of a struggle. Nothing. Just one strange detail that kept coming up again and again. The smell. Then came the most disturbing clip of all. Emily sets the camera in the corner of the child's bedroom, pointing at the crib. The baby is asleep. Emily sits down in the rocking chair next to it. She begins to hum a lullaby, gently swaying back and forth. Everything seems calm, peaceful even, but at the 37-minute mark, the camera flickers, and then it cuts to static for 2 seconds. When the footage returns, Emily is no longer in the chair. The rocking has stopped, the crib is empty, and the camera is now facing the wall. There was no sound, no screams, no crash, just that one quiet cut. Their analysis was inconclusive. They couldn't confirm a human figure, but they couldn't rule it out either. That's when investigators realized whatever happened didn't want to be recorded, but it was too late. It was recorded. The FBI lab enhanced the footage, trying to pull more detail from the distorted shapes and flickers of movement. One technician described it this way: "It's like something wanted to be seen, but only for a second, just long enough to let you know it's real, but it didn't want her to leave." By now, the police weren't just dealing with a missing person case. They were dealing with something much stranger. When the video was shown to a behavioral psychologist brought in to assist a case, her reaction was cold and immediate. She wasn't hallucinating, she said. Her reactions are too natural, too consistent. Something was in that house with her. But if Emily had vanished, who moved the camera? Who cut the recording? But the fear did. Why was there no trace of the baby? They couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed them home from that recording. And why, out of all people, was Emily the one who received the call to babysit that night? The answers didn't exist in the footage. Their first task: find the house, find the baby, find anything. Every person who watched it said the same thing afterward. There was a house at that location, or at least there used to be. But when police arrived, they found an empty lot. They felt watched. Even in well-lit rooms, even in broad daylight. It wasn't just found footage anymore. It was a warning. Chapter 5. The house that wasn't there. The investigation moved quickly after the video analysis. Detectives, now backed by federal agents, returned to the neighborhood where Emily had last been seen, and that's when they saw it. The house had been there. A white 2-story home with a red front door, a small front porch, and a narrow window overlooking the street. But something was wrong. The address Emily had written in her notebook, the one she said she was babysitting, didn't exist. Just grass and dirt. Others insisted that house had been abandoned for years, if not longer. A few even claimed it was never there at all. No mailbox, no foundation, not even rubble. They triple-checked the GPS, called in aerial maps, compared Google Street View from the month before. It had existed. The video showed her walking through the hallways, setting up cameras in real rooms, turning on real lights, but none of that could be explained. And now, it didn't. Neighbors were interviewed. Some swore they remembered a family living there, a quiet couple with a baby. When asked for property records, the county came up blank. Nothing matched the address. No ownership history. One was from a man claiming he'd seen the girl in the window. Possibly. He began looking through older files, digging back decades, and that's when he found it. But given the case, they couldn't ignore any detail. When asked which window, he hung up. Another caller whispered only a single sentence: no demolition permit, no utility bills. Like the house had never legally existed. And yet, Emily had entered it. She'd filmed inside it. Investigators sent a forensic team to the lot. They scanned for signs of a torn-down structure, plumbing, wiring, concrete slabs. They dug several feet deep. Nothing. No remains of a foundation. No pipes. Not even a nail. Just grass. The more they looked, the less they found. It was as if the house had been erased, not demolished, not abandoned, erased. Meanwhile, the local station started receiving strange phone calls. The baby was never real. Creepy prank. One FBI agent took a different route. 27 years earlier, another babysitter had disappeared under almost identical circumstances. Different state, different town, but same setup. She received a call from an unknown number. She went to a house that didn't exist. She was never seen again. Her last voicemail to her mother was almost identical to Emily's soft crying, a creaking sound, and the words, "I think someone else is in the house." It couldn't be coincidence. Two missing girls, decades apart, both drawn into houses that vanished, both watching over babies no one had ever seen. The FBI began calling it a pattern case, but unofficially, they called it something else. A trap. Not a physical one. A psychological one. These girls weren't being lured with money or force. They were being drawn in by something older, something that knew how to manipulate kindness, compassion, fear. But why babysitters? Why always at night? Why always a house that leaves no trace? A theory began to form quietly, unofficially among the agents working the case. What if the house wasn't built? What if it was summoned? An illusion that only existed long enough to serve its purpose. A structure that appeared when needed, then dissolved when its job was done. His last known location, driving toward a reported sighting of the White House with the red door. In a neighboring state. Some officers scoffed, others didn't. One of the detectives who had reviewed Emily's footage disappeared just weeks later. His dashcam stopped recording at exactly 3:17 a.m. Just like Emily's footage. The story was starting to spiral beyond normal law enforcement. People weren't just disappearing, they were walking into something, and whatever that something was, it didn't want to be found. Chapter 6. What the Babysitter Left Behind. Despite the confusion around the disappearing house, there was still one thing investigators could rely on: Emily's backpack. It had been found just 2 blocks from the vacant lot, lying near a storm drain. The first few pages were normal, class notes, scribbled reminders, grocery lists, but halfway through, the handwriting changed. Sloppier, uneven, as if written in a rush or by candlelight. At first glance, it looked ordinary. Her name was written in faded black marker on the inside flap. It was soaked from rain. Mud covered one of the zippers, but inside, that's where things got strange. The first item was her journal, the same one she always carried. One page stood out. It simply read, "It cries when I leave the room. It stops when I come back." No times, just a series of unsettling thoughts. But the sound isn't coming from the crib anymore. Another read. "There's someone walking upstairs. I told the baby to stop crying." What they found was a set of video files, some corrupt, others intact. Her eyes darted back and forth, as if listening for something. "But the baby was in my arms." There were no dates. Another entry, written in red pen. "I checked the crib and it was just ... empty. But I still hear it crying." The screen went black. "I'm not even sure I'm alone anymore. The house hates when I leave the lights on. It keeps turning them off." But hidden deep within a noise barely audible was the faint sound of a lullaby. Slowed down, it resembled Emily's voice ... but distorted. She was repeating the same sentence. Beneath that sentence, the words had been scratched out violently, like she'd panicked midway. But there was more. But the lyrics were never officially recorded, just passed down by word of mouth. Tucked in the back pocket of the backpack was a small flash drive. Police rushed it to the lab. One clip, about 30 seconds long, showed Emily talking into the camera. She looked pale. She whispered, "I don't know what's going on. The baby's gone?" Then there was a crash in the background. Another file was just audio. It played what sounded like heavy breathing. Then a voice whispered something unintelligible. "I made a mistake. I made a mistake. I made a mistake." Over and over. The final file was titled Light.wav. When played, it was a constant high-pitched tone, like feedback. Investigators ran it through multiple filters. The melody matched an old nursery rhyme popular in the 1800s. The FBI contacted folklore experts. One professor responded with something chilling. "That song has only one purpose: to keep something asleep." Back to the journal. On the last page, there were only 3 words, written in shaky, desperate script. "Don't follow me." That message seemed to be directed at whoever might find the bag, a warning. But by then, it was too late. The case had already gained media attention. Reddit threads exploded. All had posted online about trying to find the house. All disappeared without a trace. One of them left behind a note to his roommate. TikTok investigators tried to trace the house based on background details. Everyone wanted to find Emily, and people started going missing. 3 in total, 2 girls, 1 guy, all in nearby towns. Going to check out that babysitter story. Be back before midnight. He never returned. His phone last pinged near the same location where Emily's house had once stood. Police officially asked people to stop searching, but the internet doesn't work that way. The more mystery, the more attention. Some believed it was a hoax. Others were convinced it was a supernatural predator, something that used the idea of a child in danger to lure in helpers, caregivers, babysitters, anyone with empathy. But one theory gained popularity fast, that the house wasn't a place at all. It was a ritual, a scenario that had to be played out in a very specific way. You receive the call, you accept the job, you enter the house, you follow the rules, you hear the cry, and then something wakes up. Emily's story, whether she realized it or not, fit that pattern perfectly. And maybe, just maybe, that last journal entry wasn't only a warning. It was regret. She had followed the rules, and it had cost her everything.